The St. Louis Blues are on the verge of something huge. It's heading into this season with huge expectations and multiple new faces added to the franchise by Doug Armstrong. Jim Montgomery has a huge decision to make with his players as they go into the season with the expectations of going on a run. We're going to break down some preseason stuff where we're seeing multiple names that fans have to keep an eye on, and so much more in this episode. You're not going to want to miss it. So, Darius, let's just go straight into it today, where we know the St. Louis Blues have high expectations. We've seen what they did last year, the win streaks, and we're going to break everything down. But going straight into a quote from Jake Neighbours, the expectations are higher, but also the feeling's different. This year, we understand how good we can be. Now, this franchise completely changed around. We've seen Jim Montgomery join him. They went on a huge run, setting a record for the franchise's longest win streak at 12 games. Darius, this team went out and did something that a lot of fans did not expect halfway through the season last year. They snuck in, took a wild card spot, took the President's Trophy winner Winnipeg Jets to Game 7, mere seconds away from going to the second round. But overall, what is your thoughts on this Blues team going into the season? We know the expectations are higher. Players are getting better. This team is constructed better. How do you feel with the Blues going in and maybe stealing a top spot in their division?
Well, like you said, this team this year on paper is better than last year's team. I do truly believe that. Some of the moves they've made through the offseason, especially up the middle, makes this team a lot deeper and a lot better. And some of your younger players are a year older, and guys like Snuggerud are going to be playing their first full seasons in the NHL. And Holloway, I think, is on the cusp of becoming a star in this league. So that's very exciting. When you look at the division, it is a tough division, right? You no doubt about it. You don't have to debate that with anybody. One of the toughest in the entire league, if not the toughest division in the league. So it's going to be tough, right, to make it into a divisional playoff spot. But I think the expectation is that for this team this year. When you look at last year, that was the whole storyline. There were really no expectations for this team in terms of making the playoffs or making any type of noise. I think the fan base, of course, wanted that. But when you look back, hindsight 2020, of course, it was not like this a year ago, right? And Jim Montgomery was still with the Boston Bruins. He completely helped change this team around. They were the hottest team in the league heading into the playoffs, and that was the biggest storyline. It was the hottest team in the playoffs versus the President's Trophy winner. What's going to happen when both of these two, giants collide? And we got our answer, but it was a really good series. And of course, we don't have to revisit that, but it was a good series and building blocks for some of the younger guys on this team. And you saw some flashes of brilliance from guys like Jimmy Snuggerud as well. So it's going to be a very interesting season. That's for sure. I would expect them to be a lot better than last season. And not only that, the expectation now from the fan base, from the organization, management, coaching, all of that is much higher coming into this year. And I think the players recognize that. And I think a lot of these players are going to be ready to go. So it's going to be very exciting. I would expect them to make the playoffs, make some noise in the playoffs too. They're a better built team. And again, I'll say it for the third time. It's going to be a very exciting season.
And I think the big thing is we're seeing what this team is doing. We've seen management reward them. They added new names. We're going to touch on a couple people as well. But the biggest thing is if they went into the series against the Winnipeg Jets, got swept or gentlemen swept, you're looking at a team saying, hey, maybe we need to continue this slight little retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. But with them going in, putting up that fight, showing what they could do under Jim Montgomery with these new faces, this team is set to do a lot. Now, there's a lot of guys that are going to have big years. Jake Neighbours, for one, is going to take a huge step in the right direction. Back-to-back seasons with 20 goals, 27 and 22. We're seeing him progress, get better at playmaking. He throws a ton of hits. 33 in the playoffs, but also 173 in 82 games. Darius, this is a team that is still very young. Yes, you have some aging talents on the roster. Suter is not the youngest, but you still have so many guys in their mid-20s that are still ready to take the next leap in their production. You're seeing new faces come through. Nick Bukestad's going to be an awesome bottom six guy. He's going to throw hits. He's going to be a gritty player with some snot. He's going to come in and hopefully replicate that 20-goal season. The big thing looking at this Blues team is they got better while still progressively getting better within their organization. And the big thing is with the new faces, even Logan Mailloux, what is your initial thought on, we just seen Doug Armstrong go and say, hey, you guys played well. We know you can play better going into next season. So we're going to reward you with a lot of new faces.
Yeah, and they did exactly that, right? They got a lot better, at least on paper. We'll see how it plays out. I would expect it's going to play out very well, considering everything that's happened over the last, 12 months or so at this point, and Jim Montgomery coming in as the coach. But the one thing that stands out to me, Mark, is they got better on paper, first of all, and in the skill department. Jimmy Snuggerud coming in, like he's a great young player, going to play his first full season in the NHL, on that top line. Thomas is going to have a great offensive year. We know that he wants to take it to another level. He wants to show that he can play on the Olympic team, right? So he has a chip on his shoulder heading into the year. Suter up the middle, which pictured here on the third line, but we're thinking he might end up on the second line based on everything that we're seeing. We know Kyrou is going to go off with that goal scoring. We know Holloway is going to have a huge year offensively, but the one thing that stands out to me is some of the pieces they've added, and not just the pieces that they've added, but the mindset of this team. Like you mentioned, like a Bukestad, like some of the other guys throwing a ton of hits, they are going to be a hard team to play against. They're going to make your life miserable. That is St. Louis Blues hockey. That's how they won the Stanley Cup. They are bringing that back. We know Jim Montgomery has a mix of that as well as the skill. He doesn't shy away from the skill. He does not sacrifice any of that stuff, right? He's not one of those coaches. So that's going to be the biggest difference, I think, between the Blues and a lot of teams this year, where they have the skill. We know it's going to shine through, but they're going to be difficult. They're going to make your life hell every single night. It's going to be tough to play against the St. Louis Blues, and maybe not every single night for 82 games, right? A lot of teams have off nights. We see that, but most nights they're going to make your life hell. And in the playoffs, this team is going to be dangerous if they're healthy. I can only imagine if Holloway was still in the lineup in the playoffs last year. So they're a lot better in that way. They're going to be in your face. They're going to be hard to play against. They're going to be throwing hits. And then after you've, got through that, when whoever the other team is, the opposing team is, you're going to have to deal with one of the first two lines, right? So it's going to be very exciting. I'm expecting big things from this team this year.
And I think the biggest thing is we're looking at the team. And I also want to say we just seen Kaprizov sign for $17 million. Seeing the contracts that are on this team with multiple guys making just shy or just over $8 million. This is going to age so good when this team starts to get even more competitive. Looking at free agents, looking to add with the cap going up. They're built in a perfect spot. But before we get into the second part, what is your guys' thoughts on this? Go ahead and leave a comment below. Who do you think is going to be poised for the biggest breakout? How do you think the lines will look? Let us know down in the comments, and it goes straight into the line combination, the projected lineups coming from the St. Louis Blues going into the preseason game. We're seeing a lot of faces. We're seeing Suter with Kyrou and Holloway. I think this is an addition. We did a full video on that. Check that out as well. But one player in particular, or two guys, I do think we need to touch on is, of course, Otto Stenberg. Elite hands. We've seen him drive plays. He looks outstanding. Darius, we know how good the current Blues team is. They're still young. They're still getting better. But what is your thoughts on guys like Stenberg and Dvorsky still fighting for that last spot on the roster for the third line?
If you look around the league at this point in training camp, there are a lot of cuts happening, and even within this organization as well. But if you look around the league, and some players, young players, who people thought were going to make teams are not even earning the opportunity to fight for those last spots in the last preseason games. They are getting cut already. So when you look at guys like Stenberg, like Dvorsky, they're still sticking around. They're going to give them another opportunity, and they're getting an opportunity tonight. So a guy like Stenberg, I think, has a great opportunity tonight to leave one last really good impression to see if he can make the team. I don't know if he makes the team out of camp, I have to be honest, but I think he's trying to make an impression that if there is an injury, hey, I'm your guy, right? So, and moving forward into the future, of course, he has a bright future with this organization because a lot of the, guys in places where he's going to be playing in the future are going to get older and obviously phased out. So same with Dvorsky, right? And a lot of other guys on the team. They have one last opportunity to showcase their abilities, I think, with 2 preseason games left, and obviously the season starting next year. And one last thing about Ellis, too, because you had him on screen there. I feel bad for this guy because he puts up electric numbers everywhere that he's been, and he's just not going to get a shot with the Blues, at least right now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for the organization, but I do feel bad for the player because he is playing well, and he's not going to get a shot because the goaltending is solidified. But one last opportunity for a lot of guys tonight. I think that's going to be pretty exciting, and I would imagine that the last preseason game will be almost exactly what the final roster will be, with a couple guys, again, getting an opportunity to showcase to see if they can make the team.
And I think the big thing is we're seeing a lot of these guys, the battle between Stenberg and Dvorsky. Obviously, we've seen Carbonneau go down, but these guys are making a legitimate fight, and it shows how bright the future is, that these guys are still just on the crisp of making it at very young ages of 20 years old. And going in Ellis quickly, we know how good he was. In the queue, he was outstanding. I believe set the record for most shutouts for Rimouski. during their franchise as well. The big thing is the Blues have multiple positions with prospects waiting in the weeds to join this team. But what is your guys' thoughts on this? How long do you think it takes before a lot of these guys join? We're going to see the transitional phase at some point of the young Bucks getting into the lineup. Let us know down in the comments. And speaking of comments, we'll go straight into comment today. Coming from Mad Rocks, and he says, love these little snippets that keep me up with the Blues. And listen, we're not slowing down, so do not worry. We're going to be doing this preseason, regular season, going into the postseason. Hopefully when they hoist a cup, we will be covering everything to do with the Blues right here. So make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. You could be featured on comments today. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care, Blues fans.